His hands were rough, cracked, and scarred, not from battles of war, but from the everyday wars of life. When you looked at them, you could almost trace the story of his life. Lines of struggle, calluses of sacrifice, and wounds that healed but never disappeared. They were not just hands. They were a diary of silent love. Rashid was a simple man, father, a widower, and a worker who never seemed to stop. Life had been cruel to him early on. His wife passed away when their son Hamza was only 3 years old. Overnight, Rashid had to play two roles, a mother who comforted and a father who provided. He worked in a small mechanic shop by day, fixing broken engines, and by night he stitched clothes for neighbors to earn just a little more. Every morning before the sun rose, Rashid's hands were already at work. He made breakfast for Hamza, ironed his school uniform, and held his tiny hand all the way to school. Then he rushed to the shop, where grease and oil swallowed the softness of his skin. He often skipped meals, saving every rupee for his son's education. Hamza grew up watching those hands, hands that wiped his tears, hands that shielded him when life got rough, and hands that gave without ever asking anything in return. But as a child, he didn't truly understand. There were times Hamza felt embarrassed. His father's clothes smelled of engine oil. His fingernails were always black with grease. When other fathers arrived at school events wearing suits, Rashid came in as worn-out Kurta, his tired eyes searching only for his son's smile. One day, when Hamza was 12, he asked in frustration, "Baba, why don't you get a clean job? Why do your hands always look so dirty?" Rashid paused, looked at his son, and gently said, "Because these hands are working to keep your future clean." The word struck Hamza, but only lightly. As he grew older, he became more focused on his studies, driven by his father's constant sacrifices. Rashid never rested. Even when his body ached, even when fever burned through him, his hands kept moving, turning wrenches, lifting heavy loads, cooking meals, packing school lunches. By the time Hamza entered college, Rashid's hair had turned completely white. His back was bent, and his hands shook when he tried to thread a needle. But still, he worked. He sold his motorcycle, his only personal belonging, just to pay Hamza's admission fees. "It's just a bike," he smiled, "but your future is priceless." Years passed. Hamza became the first in his family to graduate as an engineer. On the day of his graduation ceremony, he looked out into the crowd. There, in the last row, sat his father. His Kurta still worn, his hands still rough, but his eyes shining with pride. When Hamza received his degree, he finally saw what his father had carried all those years. Not just responsibility, but a love so deep it never rested. But life had one last test. Rashid's health began to fail. His hands, the same ones that had built a life for Hamza, now struggled to even hold a cup of tea. For the first time, those hands wanted rest. Hamza, now earning well, begged him, "Baba, please, stop working. Let me take care of you now." But Rashid only chuckled. A father's hands dainty rest until his son's life is fully secure. And even then, they will always reach out to protect him. One winter night, Rashid quietly passed away in his sleep, his tired hands finally still. When Hamza held them for the last time, tears blurred his vision. He kissed those hands, the same ones he once felt embarrassed about, and whispered, "Abba." Every line, every scar was a prayer for me. I finally understand. Years later, Hamza kept his father's old toolbox on his office's desk, not because he needed it, but because it reminded him of where he came from. Every time life felt too heavy, he looked at it and remembered. Greatness isn't built by comfort, but by hands that never rest for the ones they love. Message: a father's love is not always spoken in words. Sometimes it is written on his hands, carved in sacrifice, and carried in silence. Those who have such hands in their lives hold treasures richer than gold.